First of all, I think your analysis was very straight line. History doesn't run in a straight line.
Kid, you cannot tell your neighbor he is stealing ducks when you are stealing frogs.
As High Commissioner, I was wrong. As Charandas Prasad, I reacted naturally how any person would have.
I did not come here for that kind of abuse. I did not come here for that kind of abuse. If you're going to go down that road, I'll walk off.
But it's all okay once they're talking. If they were talking, I could not have been here today.
You got ADHD.
I got nothing.
Calm down.
I think I've done enough in terms of taking our team out of trouble from losing.
Tomorrow, Taylor. You got script. I'm reading the script now, and the first person that comes to my mind to play a detective,
Yes,
but
okay,
an
it's good
erratic
Michael
detective is Michael Rodriguez.
Why an African slap an Indian? Why a man and slap a woman? Look, girl, how you deal with that? You deal with that.
We must encourage platforms like this because it brings together different people and allows for discussions to take place in our country on a multiplicity of fundamental issues.
Then you apologizing for something you think I did is wrong. I don't want you to do that, and you should not have done that. Hi there. Welcome to another edition of the Freddie Kissoon Show with co-host Akash Persaud. Wherever you are, based on time zones, good morning, good afternoon, good night, good evening, good day. This is a live program, the Freddie Kissoon Show with co-host Akash Persaud. We have, by all standard, we will have, in fact, by all standard, a very interesting discussion this evening. One of the most interesting experienced political actor in Guyanese contemporary history has been Moses Nagamootoo, who spent over 40 years with the PPP and rose right up to the top of the PPP's pyramid. And then, for reasons explained publicly, as you will see as the program unfolds, he left and went with the AFC. And in 2015, Moses Nagamootoo became the Prime Minister of Guyana. He has, within the past 2 months, published his autobiography. That biography is making the news around Guyana. In fact, the Vice President Barajagdio made a reference to the autobiography, and Mr. Nagamootoo is threatening libel. We will be discussing Moses Nagamootoo's autobiography, which have some very disturbing parts that tell you about the human being, and can we ever understand the human being. To discuss Nagamootoo's autobiography is one person who knows Nagamootoo very well. He served with Nagamootoo in the PPP for more than 30 years, and they have been friends since then. And then he became a foundation member of the AFC and was with the AFC when they won the election. In fact, this gentleman was one of the persons who negotiated the Commonsburg Accord, the binding document, the binding electoral political document of the APNU-AFC coalition. His name is Rajendra Prasad, and we'd like to thank him.
Bissesar.
What the hell, sorry. Rajendra Bissesar. I've known Bissesar for 50 years, which means something is going wrong with my mind. I think Alzheimer's is stepping in. We went into UG together in 1974 and have known each other since then. This is about his 5th or 6th appearance on the program, so Alzheimer's is stepping in. Rajendra Bissesar is our guest this evening, alongside another foundation bigwig of the AFC. he attained the position of Assistant General Secretary and was one of the persons who renegotiated the Commonsburg Accord on behalf of the AFC with APNU. I would like to say good evening to my co-host Akash Persaud and welcome him once again to play his part on this program. With the necessary protocol done, let's get into the program. Rajendra, later in the program, we want to hear about this party you're forming. Good. Now, can the operator bring on the screen Moses Nagamootoo and Rajendra Bissesar? On your right there is
Rajendra Bissesar.
Rajendra Bissesar. That photograph is taken from Moses Nagamootoo's autobiography. So Moses, after all, doesn't have a Freudian dislike for Rajendra. He carried a photograph of him in the book. Now, we all have our books. Please show the viewers your book. Good. So we all have our book. I will ask Akash to lead off the question. We go alphabetically to Rajendra, and then you will ask Craig whatever you want to. So, fire off, Rajendra. Fire off.
You're calling me Rajendra now.
Fire off, Akash.
This particular name has some issues here, Freddie. Persaud, and then you're calling me.
No, as I'm stepping in. I think after
I don't think so.
I think after today I'm going to quit, shall I?
Gentlemen, in order for us to bring some context in what we're discussing this evening, I would like to start with both of you to answer this question in the best way possible. Summarize Moses Nagamootoo's tenure in a very short way possible as Prime Minister for the time that he was there.
Moses is my friend. I've known him I was in the PPP for maybe nearly 30 years too. Mm-hmm. And I've known him for almost all my life, political life actually. And I mean, I would go to his house. I actually sleep at his home sometimes when I come to town. So we are that close. I was personal assistant to Moses Nagamootoo when he was Minister of Information. But I would like to say this. If I were to talk of Moses as Prime Minister, I'm sorry. The word that comes to my mind is disappointment.
And that's putting it mildly.
Acute disappointment. An inability to... Look, I was close to Sam Hines also. And I would go to Sam Hines' office. And he will always see me in between, although I don't have an appointment. And if I take a representation for somebody for some issue, he will pick that phone and call somebody and get things done. No matter how he was elected as the Prime Minister through the civic or whatever, he got things done and he exercised power and authority. Moses was not able to do that or didn't do that. So he was sitting in an office and primarily he was left to maybe look at the Chronicle and look at something. Like, he had no real portfolio, in my opinion. And that was the reality of his office. And he did not exercise authority. And that's what I like to say is acute disappointment. He should have insisted. We had a party, we had an accord, and we had 12 seats in Parliament. So he wasn't like powerless. I keep saying, you put your foot down. When they don't, you put your foot down. But when I say put my foot down, they will jump on my back. I always said this. We had the power to say, look, stop it. You're going the wrong way. We didn't collaborate with you for these reasons. And if you don't, we will have no alternative but to, because we are breaching the accord, we'll have no alternative but to remove from there and sit in Parliament as 12 members independently. We had the power to do that. And I always said this, had we done that and stuck to the principle, we could have gone to the next election and probably won it because people were fed up with these two parties. So they failed themselves, they failed us, and they failed the Guyanese people.
acute disappointment, you say.
Yeah.
And I like that you talk about putting your foot down, because many of my questions at this discussion this evening will be based on that. Mr. Craig, acute disappointment. What is your summary?
Profound disappointment.
Well, you got all day? Anyway.
No, I said in the shortest way possible.
All right. Look, from the beginning, from the day Moses was appointed, there were signs that he would not have performed to our expectations from the moment he was appointed. So in this book, Moses explained, I'm just calling him Moses not out of disrespect, but because we share the party together, that was the affectionate way of saying it. So I want the viewers to understand it, no disrespect meant. Moses said in his book that he visited the former office, the office of the former prime minister, and he didn't like the accommodation. So he chose to move into the office of the president. When there are two parties, two independent parties, sharing a single government, any little child will tell you that that's a no-no. Call a fifth form child and say, you brought something to this thing at school. You want to sit down in the HM's office? The child is going to tell you, are you mad? And that was the first sign that a lot of our expectations for AFC and government will not be met, because that's the first sign that AFC is being subsumed. And I do not think people think that APNU bullied AFC into this position. I think AFC crawled into the position. And many things after the other, Moses performed almost as if he had no power, and allow Granger to thing. In Moses' own book, he mentioned that that from day one the Commonsburg Accord was violated, but they thought it made good sense to just sit there. I mean, anybody who can say that, having, in that case, even though Ramjatan was the leader of the party, essentially in government Moses was the head of the AFC. Constitutionally, he had more power than Ramjatan and Trotman and the others. And he had executive and constitutional power to do certain things that needed to be done. But I don't think the AFC leadership wanted anything else. They just wanted to sit and sail along throughout the term and hope for a second term.
Rajendra says acute disappointment. Any two words that you can put it to?
Profound.
Well, probably. Let's borrow Freddie's term, profound.
Okay.
Before I start my question, if Bissesar wants, after this program, wants to give away his book, let the viewers know, because when I announce I have books available, people do call. Now, after this program, you want to part with the book, or you keeping the book? If you want to give it away, let us know now so we can tell the operator might.
Well, one of the reasons I'll keep it because my photograph is inside.
Oh, you keep it. Okay. Leonard and Rajendra, could you please get 107, page 107 of Mr. Nagamooto's autobiography, please? I am asking you now not for political analysis. I'm asking you now for psychological analysis, although I know you're not trained in that discipline, but attempt it, please. I'm going to read this, and I'm going to ask you how someone could write his autobiography and include these words. Here, I quote, "During the selection process, disagreements surfaced regarding certain portfolio assignments. I was adamant that the goal post identified in the Commonsburg Accord should not be shifted. One such departure was when Granger stonewalled the inclusion among the responsibilities of the Prime Minister, the function of chairing cabinet, and sidelined my nominee for the position of an executive secretary to oversee implementation of cabinet decisions. He also strenuously argued against me being assigned the portfolio for agriculture and rejected our nominee of an AFC person to be Junior Minister of Agriculture. For the viewers watching, look where my hand is pointing. I repeat that again. Rejected the nominee of an AFC person to be Junior Agriculture Minister. It was discovered that public security was split, which diminished the portfolio responsibilities of Kemba Tramchatan, who had advanced the case to be Attorney General, but the coalition just assumed office, and it was good politics then not to rock the boat. How could someone say at the election is finished, you're selecting the ministers, two independent parties form the government, and this man could say from day one, the other coalition partners say, nah, you can't get that. No, you can't get this. No. Beginning alphabetical with Bissesar. How do you assess the psychology of such a person to put it in his book?
He's self-flagellating. I mean, he's beating himself. He's flogging himself because it's a condemnation of himself. Because he is one of the foremost leaders of the Alliance for Change. And the fact is, and I think Craig might know this, I keep raising the issue, but the first issue I raised with them was when they split the Ministry of Tourism and Business into two halves. He didn't mention that. So Kathy got a half and Gaskin got a half. So we got two ministers, but one ministry. So immediately we got 5 ministries instead of 6. The other thing is, I keep raising the same issue all the time. Look, we have an accord. Let's put our foot down. And I keep repeating this. And they refuse to budge. In fact, I was seen as like a maverick. And so that is that aspect of it. In terms of the junior minister position, I recall that the first time, I'm not quite sure what happened, but when Moses went and delivered the decision of the AFC to Mr. Granger, President Granger, he came back and said, Granger said that he wanted, young people to be vice president and blah, 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 female and young people. Forgetting that Granger appointed a whole set of old heads as junior minister afterward, but that's okay. So that's the first time he came, and then we discussed it, and then Prakash said, do you want me to make a representation? I said, well, Moses is prime minister. Let him go ahead. Then Moses was talking to myself. When he went back, he was talking to myself and Nigel Hughes. And he told us, Granger asked him, do you know what Bissesar did in the president's office? So I said, okay, he asked you. So what did you answer? Because I didn't do anything wrong, and you know that.
People said you peed in the office.
Oh, the Kaichor News, the boy said that I defecated on the president's desk. I mean, obviously, he should have recognized. Granger,
that's satire, man.
Granger should have recognized that, but the fact that Granger himself failed to understand this, it is not a fact. It's a satire, right?
And he was president for 5 years.
And he's president, and he couldn't understand that.
Satire, right?
And apparently, he rejected me.
So he took the thing seriously.
Yeah.
That you had a call in nature in the office.
Exactly.
You did a dump on the table.
Exactly. Wow. And I don't understand. A president cannot understand that. But even then, I asked Moses. I said, Moses, you know me for 30 years. We're the same thing. Did you not ask him what did Bissesar do? You're the one who should have defended me because you know my history. But he said, come away from what Granger said without objecting. I said, look, well, tell me what he said, because I know Bissesar for long and I have never heard anything negative in that way about Bissesar. The other point is this. When we were at a meeting of the Alliance for Change, the management committee meeting, Moses Nagamootoo said, Noel Holder told him he's very qualified and he's competent and he does not want a junior minister. So first of all, who is this guy who was selected by us to tell him that he don't want one when it was a decision of the Alliance for Change? So I don't know how Moses could make a statement like that. It's ridiculous. Secondly, Noel turned back same time and said that he never said that.
Glad these are
so when you listen to
this biography is going to be demolished by people.
when you listen to all of these, what they have, what was this about our leadership in the AFC, that they didn't have any ability or strength of character to object to the breaches?
Craig, I asked you to do a Freudian analysis of what Moses wrote on page 107 that I read out. You want to attempt a Freudian analysis? Why would he say in his autobiography, oh God, after we got into power, Granger manipulated me? Why would he confess to that on the page?
Let me just, if I may, let me say something about the agriculture. What Moses told us was that Granger told him that he'll have a lot to do. And if he gets the position of the agriculture, he will not be able to carry out the other functions.
So he telling Nagamootoo about his capacity.
Right. Moses told us that. Granger told him that he shouldn't take it. And I'm wondering, because I know Noel Holder is a classmate of also Granger.
Right. So you're sat in the same seat. You can do Freud?
I don't want to go in the direction of mental analysis. However, I can do a quick political thing because I'm uncomfortable with that direction.
But you could do it. You could do a Freudian analysis of a man.
Could, but
give our viewers why a man would say, write his autobiography, say, oh God, I was just a sycophant in a coalition government.
Sometimes when I reflect, I wonder if it was a case of lack of capacity or just a desire to sit in a seat. It could be, you see, in the same book, Moses talked about him wanting to run for presidential candidate of the PPP instead of Ramatar. And instead of a committee selecting the candidate, the entire membership should vote. So it seems to me that Moses probably had the desire to sit in a high seat of government. And once that desire is fulfilled, it is the opposite of nadir, the word not coming to my head, but it's the zenith of his career. And he has reached and he sat on that seat and that's it. There's no nothing else. You are not a biblical man, but I am. There is a part in the Bible that talks about this guy Simon, and all he wanted to do is to see the Savior, the baby Jesus, and that's all he wanted. And so when he went to a location and he saw Jesus, he said, oh, I can die now. This is the fulfillment of my life. And perhaps that's the nexus to the same situation, but there is something quickly I'd want to go to that you read just now. I was adamant that the goalpost identified in the Commonsburg Accord should not be shifted. One such departure was when Granger stonewalled the inclusion among the responsibility of the Prime Minister, the function of chairing cabinet. Now, constitutionally, the Prime Minister cannot chair cabinet. And so I think during the Commonsburg Accord, during the putting together of the agreement, that probably was overlooked. The constitutional maneuver of that was overlooked. We had meetings, and my advice in those meetings was that, look, we realize that this thing has a problem with the Constitution, just go back and say, okay, as AFC, in the Commonsburg Accord, it has provisions to renegotiate the Commonsburg Accord. Just go back and say, here, let's renegotiate this part. We are ready to remove this because we realize that it creates a legal issue. And in exchange for that, we, you know, something, whether you get it or not at that point, it didn't matter, but you can just renegotiate it, remove it, rather than place that burden on the Constitution and on the president to have to dismantle something that you put up. And from that moment, because now that the president has a constitutional reason to dismantle that aspect, he went ahead and dismantled a whole host of other things. The other things he had the constitutional power to do, like split ministries and so on. He had the constitutional power, but not the political power. And those two things are separate. And that is something I think the AFC never, don't want to accuse the leadership of not understanding. I think they never wanted to face up to that. Look, Granger, constitutionally, you can do this thing, but politically and by the text of the agreement, you cannot. And
you should not.
You cannot, in my opinion. And when we said that, Raj, you'll know that many times we said that in meetings. And the question that was asked to us, you want us to break up the coalition? Yeah, you know,
the coalition. So it's a coalition anyway. Before
if I may make a comment,
before Akash comment,
if I may make a comment on that aspect, right? First of all, Moses is a lawyer, and the first thing he knows that if a contract is written and any clause in that contract is in breach of the law or the Constitution, is void.
Yeah.
So right away, you should know that you cannot exercise an authority that is in breach of the Constitution. He should have backed off and not even mentioned it. He should have realized the mistake that was made in the accord. The second aspect, Moses is a fact. He was a leader in the PPP, and a very important leader in the PPP, performing important functions and leading functions. And in the sense, in terms of qualification, duration, everything, he should have been in the top few to be selected as president. But there's a problem with these people that is unlike Bissesar. I speak out if I think something is wrong. A lot of these people are fearful to speak out because they're looking at what they can do.
Let's go back to the book.
Let me just finish this. So when I wrote a letter to the press the other day, when I indicated that how the Barjagli took over the PPP, how he manipulated in breach of contract decision.
Yeah, what's the point you're coming up to? I want to.
And they did not speak out against it. In other words, the manipulation took place, and they, as leaders in the PPP, did not speak out against it.
Let's go back to the book. Akash doesn't have his copy. In case you just join us, 2 foundation members of the AFC are discussing Nagamootoo's just released autobiography, Dear Land of Guyana, Rajendra Bissesar and Leonard Craig. It's available for $4,000 at Austin, and Akash said when the program is over this evening, in the morning he will go and buy his copy. You go and buy a copy in the morning to read about the sadness and tragedy of people.
We're selling his book.
I have read quite a number of articles published, and it leads me. This next question leads me to one of your columns, Mr. Kissoon, that I read recently. And let me quote what it says. It says, Moses Nagamootoo outlined how he was hurt at the 2015 independence celebration when Granger described the politics of the 60s in racially anti-Jagan terms. Nagamootoo said he squirmed because he loved Jagan so much and had to listen to Granger saying those things about Chedi. This is mere months after forming the government.
No, weeks.
Weeks, exactly, weeks. And why would you
less than 2 weeks, I think. Independence was May 66. the coalition came into power, I think, a couple...
March.
15th of March was May.
May.
15th of May.
So
that's right.
less than 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's right. And so less than 2 weeks, you're sitting there and listening to this and not doing anything about it. Did this loss of teeth already happen? I mean, what is this?
But in fairness, you can't do something about that. I mean, he had a feeling about Jagan and loved Jagan, but that would not have been a basis for us to split the coalition or...
No, but it shows you where the president was going. The man's insensitive.
Exactly.
It's your coalition, your leader that you loved. You form a coalition.
People love this man like a father.
It was insensitive, yes.
Yeah.
But I'm saying we could not have really done anything about it because it wasn't a breach of a court. But
before Quet come in,
sit and listen to that.
Before Quet come in, this, shouldn't that have warranted then a closed door meeting and say, listen, we have a coalition, man. You can't do that. Mm-hmm. How you can't do that? That is your leader is Mr. Burnham. We would not touch the PNC. Man, don't touch the PPP and the AFC. Don't touch that. This should have been a meeting. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, Raj talked about putting down your foot. It wasn't this like one of those very early moments
signs,
for me, you remember Granger described himself as a Burnhamite or Burnhamist, whichever one you prefer. And in all likelihood, he is likely to go in that direction in a typical independent speech or whatever the case is. But I would prefer Freddie's approach that after this thing happened, you have a closed door meeting and say, here, the whole reason why AFC survived and became this strong is because there were elements of Burnham's philosophy and elements of Jagan's philosophy that made AFC so strong that put you into government and as president, and you have to be more sensitive to these descriptives of the leader. How would you like Moses to go on a platform and describe Burnham in similar terms? You're opening a can of worms that and that needs to be done in a closed door session, needed to be done in that manner. And that should have been led by Moses, and it should have been with strong reprimand.
One of the position I have with regard to presidents of this country, we fight the battle for election. After election, the president should hold himself above the fray because he now is the president for Guyana. And when I listen not only to Granger, to like almost all of the presidents, lambasting and using language, very unprofessional language and lambasting opposition and other people, I say they should be above the fray. They should be setting an example. But when the presidents are flaying each other, what do you expect the ordinary members to do? So I am very disappointed, acutely disappointed, profoundly disappointed.
Could we get on the book, could you gentlemen get page 11 of the preface, X1 of the preface of the book? I'd like to read this, and this may take us right to the rest of the time. I'm reading now from the second paragraph of page 11 or X1 of the preface. Here we go. This is Nagamootoo in his own words. The coalition cannot absolve itself from blame for its removal from office. The complex but toxic mix of inter-party bickering, the senseless change in the winning leadership combination on the election ticket, dependence on ethnic support, entrenchment of the impulse to rig elections, misuse of office to force personality politics, and party paramountcy cannot be underestimated. Now, for our viewers, the thousands of people looking at this program who have not got a copy of Nagamootoo's book, let me read that again, because this is going to take the rest of the evening. Let me read again, and we go alphabetically to Bissesar and Craig. The coalition cannot absolve itself from blame for its removal from office. The complex but toxic mix of inter-party bickering, dependence on ethnic support, entrenchment of the impulse to rig elections, misuse of office to foist personality politics, and party paramountcy cannot be underestimated. Before you come in, I'd like to remind our viewers and both of you and my co-host, Mr. Nagamootoo is threatening the vice president for libel on the basis of the vice president's statement that Nagamootoo participated in rigging elections. Nagamootoo is saying here, one of the reasons why the AFC APNU lost is there was the entrenchment of the impulse to rig election. I'm a bit confused that he want to sue, but yet he wrote this. Bissesar, then, correct? Well, what's going on here? Did these things exist that he's saying in the...
Well, first of all, when he spoke of including foreign interference, protect geopolitical and strategic interest, that's nonsense. There was no political interference for strategic purpose. The election was held. Every person all the opposition leaders and everybody, Basil Williams and company, at the end of the election said it was a free and fair run election. So there was no indication of any problem. And it's coming from both parties, from the opposition. Secondly, when he spoke of inter-party problems, that was not so because we, the AFC, never really took up the problems.
Never in the public. Which inter-party bickering he's going to come to that.
It was never in the public. We had some little thing. That's nonsense. The other one, in terms of the coalition failure. The coalition failure is because the AFC failed in its mandate. It became clear that the AFC support, when the salary was increased, Moses and company jumped in to make a defense of it. In fact, he said the increased salary was necessary to prevent ministers from stealing. I said, what? So are you now justifying the PPP minister stealing because you're giving an increase to stop the stealing? So now you're justifying the PPP stealing because you weren't paying them enough, which is ridiculous, which is nonsensical. So that was one. Then it came with the bond, with the 14 million, 25 million, $14 million a month thing. We sort of justified it instead of condemning it. And we never stood up and condemned the single sourcing for contracts and single sourcing of procurement things and so on, like health, in the Ministry of Health and so on. We did not object. So we were supposed to be the check and balance, but we allowed all these things to happen. So if we allowed this whole thing to happen, and the AFC vote was because we were the ones to hold the PNC in check, and we did nothing. So obviously that's a reason for not voting for you, because you did not do what we voted for you to do.
So before Craig come in,
I'm dealing with that.
Was this thing you talk about? Mix of inter-party bickering. The AFC didn't bicker on anything.
That's what I just said. We didn't object to anything. We just sat there. We objected internally, but outside even when Carrington and Nigel created that bill to stop the mandatory sentencing of people for marijuana, the PNC blocked it, and we said nothing. We said nothing. When the PNC took a decision, our leadership was silent. And in fact, so there were no public bickering that was there. In fact, we probably lost the election because of the absence of public bickering by the AFC with regard to what the PNC was doing.
People would have still voted.
Because, if people felt that that AFC was still holding the PNC accountable, that was a reason to vote for them. But the fact that there was no public bickering, it meant that the AFC accepted everything. So why vote for you? You betrayed the trust.
Sycophant,
right? So let me just...
I have an article in the Chronicle today that deals with a lot of this. And I think, if I could remember clearly, the headline says, AFC ministers, cabinet members were not interested in distinguishing themselves from the APNU. And that is my sincere belief as I sit here today. I do not think that the AFC at the fundamental level, at the functional level, was interested in that seeming separation. And I would be happy when I read this section about the bickering. I was looking through the entire book to see Moses develop the point about what the bickering is, because I was there and the only bickering took place inside of the AFC, because as you coined the term, Freddie, second-tier leadership, for which I think, Raj, you were part of the second-tier. We were all considered second-tier leaders.
Actually, I was part of the first tier.
Yeah, he negotiated.
Yeah.
I was part of the first tier.
Man, he didn't become junior minister by
and they didn't listen to me.
So that was the bickering between the first tier and the second-tier leadership. There were lots of arguments and lots of bickering there,
and they ignore you.
And we were completely ignored and pushed aside and all of that. And we were saying, look, inside of a coalition, look at coalitions in England and in Europe, in other parts of Europe, that parties need to distinguish themselves. Look, there's one thing I want you to take note of. Look through all of the AFC ministries. They did not perform a single, not even one, AFC designed and conceived policy. Each of the ministers acted as their individual star boys or girls.
Non-accountable.
And there was nothing that they came back to the party with and say, look, as a party, you asked me to move this bottle 2 inches, and I'm only able to move it 1 inch so far. There was nothing, not even one policy. And I was one of the persons who was trying to say, look, at least implement one policy in each ministry. One policy in each ministry. Just find one thing. Let us come together, formulate it, implement it, and you come back here, and everything else, you could run it on your own and run it with the rest of the coalition or run it through Granger. But this one thing, let it come through the party, and then let us hold the party line concerning it, stick to it, and make it a line in the sand. If, for example, if something needs funding and the rest of the cabinet doesn't want to fund it, it's a line in the sand. Come to us, negotiate concerning this line that is drawn. And yeah, it's not that you wouldn't back down from some of the...
But Carrington Bill was an opportunity to do that also.
Yeah, there were several opportunities.
I mean,
almost every week.
One of it.
Almost every week there were opportunities. Literally almost every week. And... so the bickering, inter-party bickering, happened at the second-tier level.
Before
there's one last thing concerning this. One quick thing. The AFC virtually neglected its RDC councillors. Virtually neglected. Was no
guidance.
No guidance given to them and stuff like that. And on some of the councils, because people were headless, literally, on some of the councils, folks did have some bickering among AFC versus APNU, because APNU councillors came ready and trained and thought to vote for one thing, and AFC members had to literally on their own, and when they sit and they look at some of these things that are put up for vote, and they say, no, this isn't thing, and they went ahead and voted with the PPP. And so there was some bickering, but that bickering hardly led to the downfall of the coalition.
Akash,
You know, one of the point I want to touch on with regard to what Moses wrote here about the rigging. People were like vacillating. People went along with the leadership for the coalition. A lot of people were skeptical, but they went along. And so when the no confidence motion was done, and you see a person that you respected, that people respected, go on television and tell you about divide by 2.5 man and correct the half man to 1 man. When you listen to somebody that you respected all your life, telling you 33 is not the majority, you always said it before, and tell you about the half man, correcting and add 1. Oh my God!
But the half man and Jumbie's half. Jumbie's don't be, look. Before you come in, give me $4,000. I will
Freddie,
give you my book. You're in journalism. You have to read about the tragedy of Moses Nagamootoo. Give me 4,000. Take my copy.
I have a question here. I'm going to ask the 4,000. We got used to buy lunch. 4 of us. We're going to add the rest.
Give me to buy dinner tonight. Give me my Give me 4,000.
Keep your book. You have to read.
You have to read Nagamootoo.
Well, let me say this.
You'll buy it and use your money for it.
Let me say this. You alluded to former Prime Minister Moses Nagamootoo sitting and probably don't have much to do. Craig alluded to the fact that probably he'd reach his zenith, and that's what meant a lot. But he also suggested that he single-handedly engineered the APNU AFC victory in 2015.
Yeah, he said that in the book.
Do you think then
a couple times when
that
he said that in the book,
sitting in the office was just good enough to say, well, at least, you know what, this is a vendetta too, and you guys are out of office, and you said, well, but do you think that there was ever, did this, because I cannot understand how you can just be comfortable sitting there.
If I could attempt, I want to be, just before I answer that, I want to just mention something quickly about election rigging. Because I was there and I was at the forefront and I appeared on several programs and defend a lot of what took place then. And so I want to make a personal statement here. At the time, I felt there was a lot wrong with the election. And some of the leaders who were in charge of various sections gave a list of things that was supposed to be wrong that the recount will clear up. And GCOM has the information on me, and anybody should be able to get it. And I think as the recount proceeded, I personally realized that a lot of things that was promised that will be revealed in the recount wasn't forthcoming. And anybody who noticed that I changed from a front page to a back page, that was of my own doing. And one of these days I'll write completely about some of that. Back to your question. You're asking essentially, why would Moses just sit there? As I said, I think that was the prize. The prize was not performance.
He said that, given that Moses wrote in the book that he brought about the
So I'm saying, I believe, first of all, that Moses did have a strong claim that his involvement brought about the victory. That I won't dispute that, right? Not single-handedly, but his involvement was crucial, major weight in creating the victory. Right? So let's give him that. But if that is the prize, then performance is not what you're looking for, and I believe there was an element of revenge. Right. That look, you guys mess on Nagamootoo, and Nagamootoo got you out of office. Nagamootoo is happy. And there's a last part of what we read that where in this book it says the senseless change of leadership of the combination that won in 2015. Now that there is very, very presumptuous on the part of Moses. Moses met with AFC, some of AFC leaders, along with Kemraj Ramjatan and his wife and so on. And he said openly after he had the heart bypass surgery, he said, my family wants me to take it easy. They don't want me to go forward. And not only that, I had made a promise to Kemraj that this would only be one term. And Kemraj, the younger man, the baton is on to you now. Run with it. And having made that promise since 2018, if you have a change of heart, or if the political conditions demand that Moses stays on, because, you know, you might have a wish, but the tea leaves will tell you that, hey, you should stay on. What Moses should have done was come back to the AFC family and say, hey guys, these are the reasons, they make a case. And many of us would have gone in that direction. But what Moses did was stay away from the AFC, made AFC his enemy literally, stayed away from meetings, and in my opinion, concocted a plan to, you know, sideline Ramjatan. But what Ramjatan did, he went.
Not sue you.
What Ramjatan did was went to the people of the AFC, went to the membership, at a membership meeting and say, guys, this is the situation. I want to you guys to decide. And almost, I think it was a 98 to 2% vote for Ramjatan. And even after that, Moses had a difficulty respecting it. I have already written a column for next week, which will appear next week, and discuss the very matter that
I hope you don't use those bad words that you did in today's column.
Well, I use one on the diplomatic word.
We have to
our viewers may want to know what to take.
We have to call this.
I use one undiplomatic word, and that was two blatant lie.
Let me just make this final thing with regard to this. The part of the intrinsic tendency to rig. Now,
he said that.
But what I'm saying, the PNC was in opposition for a long time. Many of us felt being in opposition, they would have learned a lesson and change. So we thought we're going to give them a chance. A lot of crossover votes crossed over, believing that and believing the AFC could hold them accountable. But I recall the moment they started saying about 2.5 mile and 34 is majority.
He said that in the book.
I know. Let me finish. Immediately, once they said that, I, Rajendra Bissesar, sent him my resignation immediately, because I was not going to associate myself with any form of gerrymandering and rigging and mentality and intrinsic mentality to rig, because I'm opposed to it. However, the reality is when the average crossover votes see the attempt to rig, right away you raise in their minds the spectre of Burnham and in the history. So right away, they ain't gonna vote for you.
Yes.
It is stupid. So whenever, Norton made the same mistake. If you want to get crossover vote from Indians into the PNC, and that's the only way you can win, and then you can say, the first thing I'll do is invoke the legacy of Burnham, right away you just shut yourself out. So it's ridiculous for you to tell me 34 is majority. I said, you bring him back 28 years? No way, I ain't voting for you no more.
But they have, in the supernatural world, do they have half man? a dead person will come back as a zombie.
You're probably more
person.
you're probably more associated with those ghosts. I don't.
Freddie, there's a new gadget that a company called Meta.
And it's a half person.
Yeah, and when you put it on, you see half of a person doing this.
Well,
I don't know if that suits your analogy.
Well, ask Nagamootoo. In the book, he justified half person.
He's still doing it?
In the book, he talked about he actually agreed with the chancellor that you got 32.5%, and you got to add on a half to 132.
You round it up.
Round it out, and you get 34. But Akash,
as Greg says, anything is possible in a simulation, in a simulated world, and in a simulation. The metaverse, as Greg has alluded, as talking about, anyone can exist. You can exist. Possibly more than one of you can exist in the metaverse.
So the half man thing could be justified in the regular in the no confidence thing.
Probably in the parallel universe.
But I am telling you, Akash.
No, when I listen to when I listen,
4,000.
A tragedy of this man.
I don't have no 4,000 here. There's a video circulating, and it comes down back to the same when we started this thing about putting your foot down. There's a video circulating. It's still on Facebook with former Prime Minister Nagamootoo in Berbice among some cane cuts. Making a set nice and chasing out and all kind of thing. And he's trying to tell them stop. You know, he's trying to talk back to them, right? Man, when these are the people who supported the AFC, there's no doubt. And when this thing was couldn't the PM have said, no, not the sugar workers, not the sugar estates. Those are our supporters, those are our people, they've been with us for the beginning. Why couldn't he?
Oh, I'm sorry to cut you. He said in the book here, when they dismissed the 7,000 sugar workers, it was the first time in the 5 years in government, he knocked his hands on the table and said, you can't do the sugar workers then. I fought all my life for the sugar workers, he said so. But yet the sugar workers got
what power was in that power?
And they had to go to court to get the severance pay.
Let me say this. When it happened like this, there's a tendency to defend rather than stand up. When the board took a decision, it wasn't cabinet. Mm-hmm. The board, that's how I got it. The board took a decision to shut down.
No, Clive Thomas said the board. He was chairman of the board. Clive Thomas said that the board did not take such a decision.
But I don't know if I don't know because
Moses,
at that time Moses went on thing and defended the closure.
But there's a betrayal, man.
Moses.
Are you serious? He said in this thing, he knocked down his hand in a cabinet meeting and said, "You're not going to do sugar."
But what did he do in the public? What did he?
I'm glad you said that.
I don't know what
the
they
two
do.
You get smoted and we'll sue the two.
No. There's no sin. The thing is, when I speak to the AFC leadership about criticizing the PNC, Ramjitan said clearly, we are part of the cabinet, we are part of the decision, we have to defend it, we cannot attack it. So I told them, the party can. So I am saying, if you hit your hand there, why didn't you get the AFC to issue a statement that the AFC is objecting to, and if they proceed in this direction, we will...
But it was an AFC agriculture minister.
No, it doesn't matter. The point is, you can make a decision in cabinet.
If you're going to issue such a statement, you have to fire your minister.
No. Cabinet take a decision. The minister could say, look, cabinet take a decision. I'm not in favor of it.
No, but the minister has to bring cabinet papers to the cabinet.
No. At that stage, as far as I'm concerned, the whole ministry should have resigned from and departed from. That was no red line crossed. We should have left that association long ago. And that was the time we should have said, no, this is the red line. You're crossing and you're destroying us. In fact, you're not destroying us alone. You're destroying this coalition because that is going to be the doom. Yeah, and it is not politically sensible. Secondly, it's not morally correct, and it's in breach of what we promised the people. We will not stand for it. We should have just walked out of that accord.
Yeah. It doesn't mean it had to end in a walkout, but it meant that if AFC felt that strongly, which I don't think it did, the natural result would have been they would have had to instruct their agriculture minister to withdraw those cabinet notes, because quite a few ministers of the cabinet said the closure of the sugar estate caught them by surprise. So it seems as though it is something that was hatched with the APNU leadership, or somebody in the APNU, or advised the APNU, and then that was passed down to the minister, and then the minister worked back. So if the AFC felt that strongly, it is the AFC, but I'm going to say something that may not be out in the public domain, that at one of our executive meetings in the AFC, there was a motion to remove the agriculture minister, and it came out of that same sugar thing. There was a motion to remove an AFC senior first-tier leadership, to use your term, sideline the motion, duck the motion, and everything.
So are you suggesting to me that, are you suggesting Noel Holder took a decision by himself, prepared a cabinet paper to put the cabinet to close the industry without consulting with the other 5 ministers? Are you telling me that when you present something to a cabinet, and all of these learned people sitting in cabinet will recognize the political detriment to the coalition if you go ahead, that because the minister presented it has to pass?
No, that's what I'm saying. I don't think they cared.
I am saying, here again, and I'm talking to, because people see sugar as Indians. 1/3 of the people who are employed in sugar are Afro-Guyanese. 50% of the people employed at Wales Estate are Afro-Guyanese. It's not an Indian thing. Plus the spin-off effect of the sugar is benefiting blacks, Indian, and everybody else. So you're telling me these members of the PNC and cabinet would not have recognized the detrimental effect of such a decision on any future victory of the and say, no, we can't go that way? Are they all those dumb? Are you saying because Noel Holder presented, they have to accept it? They're culpable.
They who?
The entire cabinet for allowing it, for agreeing with whatever you're saying the minister present. They can say, no, Holder, we heard you, but what you're presenting to us is gonna send us to the grave. You want to tell me that just because the minister presented, I'm saying no, cabinet should have stopped it. They're all dumb.
No, that's what I'm saying, that the AFC leadership in cabinet were not interested in distinguishing themselves from APNU leaders.
I'm saying the APNU leaders should have stopped it too.
Let him.
So if it is something that was hatched inside of the APNU system, whomever is part of that, or advisors or whatever, and then it was brought forward to thing, and that can come about because AFC had no real policy in the government.
We got to go very, very, very quickly. Very quickly. Here's a copy of the book.
Freddie, this is already paid for. Look, the money's here.
You're in journalism. You have to read about the tragedy of Moses Nagamootoo. Quickly, very quickly, your thoughts on the man and his book. Very quickly, both of you, and we got to go.
I will just say the man squandered a beautiful legacy when he became Prime Minister of this country. He was well respected by me, and he squandered it, and that's all I'm saying.
Well, you still like your operator. Quickly, can we have Rajendra and Moses? Quickly, look you there. Look you there.
In front of City Hall.
In front of City Hall. Thank you, operator. Very, very briefly.
Yeah. I think Moses has done enough to have a somewhat of an iconic place in the history of politics, in the totality of the history of politics. You can't just wish away his contribution. But at the end of that career, it has a lot of dots and blots that kind of blunt some of that contribution and some of the expectations we have as Moses as a fighter, the same malady that befalls Aubrey North.
Okay, we have to go. Before we go, Akash, thanks for co-hosting again. Before we go, Akash, you're in journalism here. Moses Nagamootoo's autobiography. The two guests are taking the two hosts to dinner this evening. Rajendra and Leonard said they will finance it. Rajendra on one of the programs said that he is forming a third party. I don't know if he's going to ask Leonard Craig.
The party is already formed.
But I don't know if he's going to ask Akash.
I did
Persaud and think
I did ask Leonard, but Leonard tell me he was inclined now to go to the PPP.
Akash wants to be deputy leader.
He is not the PPP.
Akash wants to be deputy leader. We were looking at Moses Nagamootoo's autobiography, and two of the persons who were qualified to discuss that autobiography was Leonard Craig and Rajendra Bissesar. Both of them came out of the AFC. We will see you on Wednesday. Catch you later. Bye-bye.